true Hollywood story.
This program contains scenes of nudity and coarse language. Viewer discretion is advised.
Hi, I'm Plenty.
Xenia Sergeyevna Onatop.
Holly Goodhead.
Honey, Ryder.
My name is Pussy Galore.
I must be dreaming.
But 007 was not dreaming. He was bedazzled by the intoxicating power of the Bond girls.
Everything was sex. I was shocked.
Sex, sex, sex.
Exciting, exotic, erotic. For more than 4 decades, these mesmerizing women have co-starred in a truly legendary film series featuring the most famous spy in the world.
One was heavily intent in making it look as easy as possible. I was a little nervous about saying, my name's Bond, James Bond.
I pretended that I knew what I was doing.
The Bond girls have lived.
The average woman does not have a submachine gun in her purse.
Laughed.
It said, the prince and the pussy.
And loved.
This is a very good kissing, yeah. Sean Connery loves to tickle.
My cleavage was probably more important than, you know, my delivery.
In the next 2 hours, we will tell the incredible tale of an exclusive sorority whose glamorous members share a most uncommon bond, James Bond.
Take me around the world one more time.
This is a story of the Bond girls, the true Hollywood story.
Bond girls rule!
Her life's ambition was to be a star.
Never recover from the public scandal.
For more than 40 years, the exploits of secret agent James Bond have thrilled moviegoers and earned more than $3 billion at the box office.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
James Bond had the gadgets, the smarts, and most of all, those exotic, seductive, and dangerous women known as the Bond girls. Producer Michael Wilson.
Bond women are not the type of women you meet in ordinary life. They're larger than life.
Right from the start, the Bond girls represented a new kind of sex appeal. Playboy magazine founder Hugh Hefner.
The Bond girls established a pattern of a stronger kind of woman, good girls and bad girls, that captured the fancy of the world.
Agent 007 was the creation of a former British naval commander, Ian Fleming. In 1952, Fleming wrote the first James Bond novel, Casino Royale. 44-year-old Fleming found a name for his alter ego from an unlikely source, Bond expert Danny Biederman.
At his home Goldeneye in Jamaica, he looked on his table and there was a book by an ornithologist named James Bond. And he thought this was perfect because it was such a simple, boring name.
But Ian Fleming's action-packed books were anything but boring. In the aftermath of World War II, the author wrote about a new battle between the superpowers. Fleming glamorized the lives of government spies on the front line of the Cold War. Bond screenwriter Tom Mankiewicz.
Ian Fleming was the ultimate colorful potboiler writer. I mean, one could not call his books great literature, but they're addictive, like cigarettes or alcohol.
Ian Fleming made sure James Bond was as comfortable sipping a martini as he was playing Russian roulette with a Soviet spy. The late actor Desmond Llewellyn played weapons agent Q in 17 Bond films.
As Ian Fleming said, that Bond is what every man wants to be and knows damn well he can't be.
Initially, Fleming's novels didn't exactly fly off the shelves until they attracted the attention of the most powerful man in the world.
The books themselves only really started to be read in this country after John Kennedy confessed that to relax, used to read the exploits of a British secret agent named James Bond.
In 1961, Life magazine asked Kennedy to list his top 10 favorite books. Number 9 on the list was the James Bond novel From Russia with Love.
James Bond was perfect for the times.
The early 1960s, which was the beginnings of a more obvious arrival of the sexual revolution, included the Bunnies, and Bond, and the Beatles, the 3 Bs.
Sex played a major part in the popularity of Agent 007.
Every guy wants to be Bond, and every woman wants to sleep with Bond.
But Bond wouldn't sleep with just any woman. They had to be smart, beautiful, and full of surprises.
The James Bond girls represented an independence and a strength that had tremendous appeal for women as well as men. And they were very much a part of, I think, the sexual revolution and helped to redefine the possibilities of what a woman could be.
They were all sexual creatures, and they're roughly are lumped into two groups, good girls and bad girls. When Bond sleeps with a villain girl, he converts her. It's like converting to Catholicism or Judaism. Bond converts you, and suddenly you're on the side of the good guys.
The James Bond stories were tailor-made for Hollywood, and producer Harry Saltzman was eager to get his hands on the rights.
I think James Bond epitomizes the age of violence. He is, you know, today's Tarzan, today's Superman.
In 1961, Saltzman teamed up with producer Albert Cubby Broccoli. And yes, it's true. Cubby's family created the vegetable of the same name.
Producer's function was to convince the distributor that a picture should be made of James Bond, because he'd been overlooked for many years.
That June, Broccoli and Saltzman struck a deal with United Artists to roll out 6 Bond films. The first movie in the series was Dr. No. The search was on for Agent James Bond. Fleming wanted to cast someone suave like British actor David Niven. But Broccoli and Saltzman had a different idea. They were looking for an actor who was handsome, debonair, and rugged. They cast a 31-year-old Scotsman named
Connery, Sean Connery.
Connery was a former bodybuilder turned actor. Playing James Bond was not a simple assignment.
A lot of the stuff in the Bond films, too, was very much resting on how he, the Bond character, played and did his part, and it was much more on a solo effort, and most of the time one was heavily intent in making it look as easy as possible.
In Fleming's books, the world's greatest spy always seemed to attract equally formidable women. Producers Broccoli and Saltzman were searching for just the right actress to play Honey Rider, and they found her quite by accident.
They say, oh, Ursula, they're looking for you. They saw your photograph at your husband's agent's desk, and they want this kind of a girl. 25-year-old Swiss-born Ursula Andress was a stunning beauty with no screen credits to her name. I was quite scared being an actress because I had absolutely no experience. And then I thought, well, Dr. No should be easy to do because it was mostly action. And I didn't have to show my feelings, my emotion, which I'm very scared and shy to show.
Saltzman and Broccoli wanted Ursula for the role, but Andress and her husband, photographer John Derrick, weren't sure if the movie was the right vehicle for Ursula.
It was just near my birthday, and Brooks Douglas came over to our house, and we were all together there talking, and he said, okay, we know you never read the script, because that's why you don't work, because you don't read the script, you don't want to make a decision. So Kirk was reading the script aloud to us all. And we were saying, oh, well, it's funny, it's cute, it's action, and Kirk said, also, you have to do that.
Andress finally agreed to take the part, on one condition.
I never auditioned. No. I never did the screen test. I hate the screen. I hate to go and audition because it's like, you know, on the butcher chopping block, you're there, you know, so looking at every movement, so listen to everything. No, I couldn't. I would die if I have to audition.
On January 16th, 1962, shooting on Dr. No kicked off in Jamaica. Ursula quickly learned there was more to playing a Bond girl than just learning lines.
That was a machine gun, not a dragon.
Oh, there's a dragon here, too.
Every morning I used to come into the makeup room and they said, Ursula, we have to paint your body because I'm supposed to be this native girl there, a little brown from the sun and from in the sea. So every morning I had to stand there naked and he has to paint me from the top to the bottom. And then it was used to be very funny because everybody in the hotel knew that I'm going to have the total makeup. So every other second, ding, ding, ding. Yes, come in, breakfast. So we had every other 5 minutes, one of the boys wanted to bring the breakfast so they could look at me.
When Ursula Andress first appeared on screen, she wasn't nude, but the actress made a huge splash. Producers took a big risk with the shot. Moviegoers weren't used to such provocative sexuality.
It's supposed to be a suit which is for action. It's not, you know, going taking the sun and to be sexy. It's supposed to be a real working bathing suits, you know. The bra holds you in, the pants to stay up, and didn't like the rubber belt, so I took this army belt for the night front.
Andrus radiated sex appeal, but her thick accent didn't make the cut. Producers were forced to revoice her part.
I was very happy about it because sometimes, I get scared and I had to say the words.
You see, my father was a marine zoologist.
Oh, don't worry, horses, they're going to double. I said, okay. So it was easier for me because it was not the pressure.
By the end of March 1962, Dr. No wrapped filming. Andrus wasn't counting on the movie to make her a star.
They tested it, and then people saw it, and the people, oh, Ursula, we saw you in that film. You're marvelous. It's an adorable film. Oh, it's fantastic. I was surprised.
James Bond and Honey Rider battled evil, but the real test was going to come when Dr. No hit screens all over the world.
He's sexy, but oh Lord, did I find out.
And later, the Bond girls get thunderballed.
I was not ready to be served caviar and champagne.
By the fall of 1962, James Bond was ready for action. The film Dr. No was hyped as a thriller oozing with sex and violence. Producers were banking on Bond girl Ursula Andress to deliver the goods and give Agent 007 a run for his money. That October, the movie Dr. No premiered. Audiences were blown away by Ursula's moves and curves. Ursula's wet bikini made a big impression on future Bond stars. Actor Yaphet Kotto played villain Dr. Kananga in the film Live and Let Die.
Dr. No was the first James Bond movie I saw. Ursula Andress walked onto the screen, and I fell out of the chair on the floor. I'll never forget that moment. Never, ever forget it.
Actor George Lazenby, a.k.a. 007 No. 2.
I was dreaming of her walking out of the water into my bedroom.
No one was more surprised by the buzz than Ursula Andress.
I went to see the film and said, now I have to wait for this fantastic shot. So I waited and waited. It's the end. They said, when is the shot everybody's talking about? I didn't understand it. I didn't realize which one was really this fabulous scene. I thought they were going to do something with special effects or something like that.
The movie Dr. No was a modest hit at the box office, but the press couldn't get enough of Ursula Andress. She was touted as the hottest woman in the world.
The international sex symbol, I think it's funny. Sex, kitten, sex, goddess, everything with sex.
In the early 1960s, the sexual revolution was just beginning to take off, and Hugh Hefner wanted Ursula to take it all off for Playboy magazine.
Of all the Bond girls, my favorite, all-time favorite, is the first one, Ursula Andress. After that film, I said we need to have that girl in the magazine.
Meanwhile, Dr. No also got a boost from real-world events. In October 1962, the Cuban Missile Crisis brought America and the Soviet Union to the brink of war. Disaster was avoided when the Russians backed down and removed their missiles from Cuba.
People were afraid of the bomb, afraid of the Russians, and suddenly there was this hero on the screen that they'd come to know in the novels. It was great to have this fantasy idea of somebody who could save the world.
Producers Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman believed in Bond too. They forged ahead with their second 007 film, From Russia with Love. Sean Connery was signed to reprise his role as James Bond, but finding a leading lady who could top Ursula Andress proved more difficult. Producers gambled on another unknown to play the role of Tatiana Romanova.
Daniela Bianchi, she was really a newcomer. She was an Italian actress. They'd really struggled to find who was going to play this James Bond girl, and they came up with her.
Like Andress, 21-year-old Daniela Bianchi was a knockout with little acting experience. She was Miss Italy in 1960 and a runner-up in the Miss Universe pageant. But Daniela's resume didn't matter. The beauty had all the right assets, except one. The actress's thick Italian accent proved problematic. Once again, producers revoiced Bond's love interest. Principal photography on From Russia with Love began April 1st, 1963 in London. From there, the production moved to Istanbul, Turkey. Producers wanted to out-scissor the previous Bond film. The film From Russia with Love boasted some provocative girl-on-girl action. Former Miss Israel Alicia Gurr bared her claws in a racy catfight.
I didn't think it would be suitable to be a fighting gypsy girl, especially two women fighting. And Harry Saltzman said, Alicia, trust us. You'll get more fame from this picture than actually some of it was sewn right on our bodies as we got dressed, so that nothing will pop out or show. We were actually using an old trick that beauty queens know to avoid breasts popping out or nipples showing. We used a little glue right onto the blouse.
But producers Broccoli and Saltzman could only go so far. Alicia's steamiest scene was left on the cutting room floor.
James Bond and I go to the tent and spend the night, and we have a very interesting and intriguing scene in the tent, which includes the bed. And Sean Connery loves to tickle. And he continuously tickled me, and I was trying to be serious and seductive, which was hard when you're giggling. But as it happened, when the picture was finally cut in the United States, those scenes had never been seen. The reason why they cut it out is because my belly button showed. Now, I know nowadays it sounds funny, but in the 60s, the United States did not allow, the censor did not allow belly buttons.
This is why Moneypenny is liked by so many people throughout the world, because she is more than a two-dimensional woman. She's a woman. It's a little sad, really, that so many people take the Bond film so seriously. I mean, I've been asked, were you really in love with him?
From Russia with Love premiered in London in October of 1963 to mixed reviews. But execs at United Artists weren't taking any chances. That summer, they re-released Dr. No on a double bill with From Russia with Love, while producers Broccoli and Saltzman were suddenly hot. But their next film would really prove that Bond had the Midas touch. Coming up, Dressed to Kill.
Well, that's quite a nice little nothing you're almost wearing. I approve.
The first two Bond movies, Dr. No, their next 007 adventure would be pure gold. In March 1964, production began on Goldfinger at London's Pinewood Studios. This time around, producers cast a more sophisticated Bond girl, a 37-year-old blonde named Honor Blackman.
People often ask why I got the part, and I guess the answer is very immodest.
Unlike her predecessors, Blackman was a veteran actress. Honor was best known for playing secret agent Catherine Gale in the hit British TV show The Avengers.
I was very hot in England then because I'd spent 2 years in The Avengers. I did judo, and I had to do judo in Goldfinger, so I didn't think there was anybody else to choose.
Isn't it customary to grant the condemned man his last request?
You've asked for this.
In Goldfinger, Blackman played a vindictive villainess with the titillating name Pussy Galore.
It was a rather bold thing and daring thing to do, to have a character named Pussy Galore. There was a lot of concern about it, but the producers, Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman, decided, no, we're going to go forward with this. Let's put it in the script. They shot the thing, and then suddenly they had people from United Artists, a distributor, saying, we can't do this. You cannot call a character Pussy Galore.
The use of the name Pussy Galore was quite controversial. The studio wanted to change the name to Kitty, but they got away with it, and everybody enjoyed it. And part of it was because of the way Sean pronounced the name. He didn't say Pussy, he said Pussy. So it was a little more acceptable.
But what wasn't so acceptable was Pussy's ambiguous sexuality. For James Bond, Ms. Galore was just another conquest.
By the time the movie ends, he has actually converted her. She has actually left lesbianism and becomes a full-fledged heterosexual woman and falls for him. So Bond has this sort of power over women.
Pussy Galore wasn't the film's only memorable character. 27-year-old Shirley Eaton played Jill Masterson, a Bond girl who dies a very bizarre death.
James Bond wakes up from having been knocked unconscious and finds a woman he had just slept with completely painted in gold. She died because it didn't leave any pores open for the skin to breathe. They had a French makeup man painting her with gold leaf paint. It took an hour and a half to paint her whole body. All she was wearing was a G-string and two small cones over her nipples so that they wouldn't be revealed, but otherwise she was standing there naked in gold.
For actress Shirley Eaton, the paint job could have ended her career and her life.
They apparently had a doctor on the set, she says, at all times in case, something went wrong.
On September 17th, 1964, Goldfinger premiered in London. There was a media frenzy a few days later when co-star Honor Blackman was introduced to members of the British royal family at a charity ball. Executives at United Artists worried about royal reaction to the name of Blackman's character, Pussy Galore.
They saw a picture in the paper of me talking to Prince Philip, and it said, "The Prince and the Pussy."
So the producers of the Bond films grabbed hold of that, got the newspaper, showed them to United Artists and said, look, nobody's upset. It's in the headline. They're using the name Pussy. Come on. And they said, okay, let's let it go.
When Goldfinger was released stateside in December 1964, the film was an immediate hit at the box office. The Bond girls were like money in the bank.
That should keep him occupied for quite some time.
I'm beginning to like you, Mr. Bond.
Goldfinger set a new box office record, grossing more than $10 million in 3 months. But the Bond girls quickly discovered there was a downside to fame.
There's people, let's say there's one in Japan who calls me nearly every day. He finds me somewhere, and which is a little scary.
I've lost many, many parts because people have said to me, can you look like anything other than Moneypenny?
I think the thing that is a heavy burden of being a Bond girl is that you have to remain attractive, because people would not like if they looked and said, that's a Bond girl? My sister looks better than her.
With the success of Goldfinger, producers Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman decided to up the ante with their next Bond film, Thunderball. The 1965 picture boasted a bigger budget and more complicated special effects. Producers needed to find a new Bond girl to match the movie's sensational stunts.
This is going to hurt a bit. First time I've tasted women, they're rather good.
This time, the duo threw a 1-2 punch. Broccoli and Saltzman cast 23-year-old Claudine Auger as Sean Connery's love interest, Domino, and 34-year-old Luciana Paluzzi as Fiona Volpe, a deadly beauty who tries to assassinate Bond.
She was a very strong character, very independent. I mean, she actually captured James Bond, and she used her sexuality to do it. He walked into his hotel, he walked into his bathroom, and there she is naked, lying in the bathtub.
Oh!
Hello.
Aren't you in the wrong room, Mr. Bond?
Not from where I'm standing.
When the camera stopped rolling, the perks kicked in.
By the time they shot mine, which was the fourth one, they knew that they had a success in their hands. So money was no object. I was not ready to be served caviar and champagne on the, under a tent that was built on the beach. I got a little spoiled, I must say.
Spoiled, but not for long.
It was, in a sense, a blessing, but also a curse, because when I finished the Bond picture, it was like an etiquette. When I went back to Italy, where at the time the Italian directors were all very snobbish about the fact that I was in a Bond picture, and although I got the recognition, the kind of pictures that were offered to me were always a level less than intellectual. So it was tough. For a long time, it was very tough.
By 1966, skirts were shorter, love was freer, and sexual taboos were fewer. That year, Sean Connery began filming his fifth Bond movie, You Only Live Twice. In keeping with the times, producers decided to cross racial barriers. They cast 22-year-old Asian actress Mia Hammer as Bond's latest love interest, Kissy Suzuki.
Tiger said, from now on, you must do everything a Japanese style.
You Only Live Twice performed well at the box office, grossing more than $100 million worldwide. Even so, Sean Connery was getting restless. After 5 Bond films, the actor was worried about typecasting. Despite a lucrative offer, Connery called it quits. Producers needed an actor who could pull off playing Agent 007. Connery was a tough act to follow. Broccoli and Saltzman took a chance on a 28-year-old model-turned-actor from Australia, George Lazenby.
They wanted a guy who was unafraid of anything. And I guess my naivety about the business gave me no fear. I pretended that I knew what I was doing.
Lazenby was set to play the new James Bond in the movie On Her Majesty's Secret Service. But this was going to be a Bond film with a twist. 007 falls in love and marries Tracy, the daughter of a crime boss. 30-year-old Diana Rigg had the looks, the brains, and the savvy to hook Bond.
Diana Rigg was brought from the Avengers TV series. When she quit that to do this. Rigg, who's a Shakespearean actress, brought a lot to the role of Tracy in Her Majesty's Secret Service. It's a very complex role.
Diana, obviously was very appealing to me. I've seen the Avengers many times.
Do you always arm yourself for a rendezvous?
Occasionally, I seem to be accident-prone.
Camera started rolling in October of 1968. George didn't take his work too seriously. He loved to flirt with all the girls, and he wasn't shy.
One night I went to a kind of a folly show where the girls were up there dancing and everything, and I was a little out of it, so I got up there dancing with them and stopped the show. I thought, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to stop the show. I thought I'm famous, I can get up here and do this sort of thing and get away with it. And I apologized, and I asked them all to my suite afterwards, these girls, and I didn't thought they'd come. But 3 o'clock in the morning, I get a bang on the door. I opened the door, and there was 30 of them right down the corridor of, showgirls. And they got their boots up here and everything but their whips. And I'm on my own. And there's this tennis player staying in the hotel who I'd never met, a guy called Lou Hose. And I called him up and I said, Lou, give me a hand. I'm Australian, I got 30 girls up here. He hung up the phone.
Off-screen, the laughs kept coming, but the film was far from funny. The movie's tragic ending surprised audiences.
It's Blofeld. It's Blofeld.
Despite some good reviews, Lazenby didn't last long as James Bond.
I told him I wasn't going to do another Bond film. Everyone told me that this is Sean Connery's gig. You're not going to be able to take over from him. Get out, use the fame, and go on and do other things. I hadn't signed a contract.
Producers Broccoli and Saltzman were left hanging. They begged Sean Connery to return for the next Bond adventure, Diamonds Are Forever. But they didn't have much luck. By January 1971, the film's start date was quickly approaching. Screenwriter Tom Mankiewicz began hitting the keys.
At that time, Sean had not yet agreed to come back. John Gavin was being held in the bullpen, as it were, to play Bond if they couldn't get Sean. And when I finished my draft, I became somewhat of a hero because they sent it to Sean and he said, okay.
For the first time, Bond had an American love interest. 30-year-old Hollywood veteran Jill St. John was picked to play Tiffany Case.
Who doesn't want to be a Bond girl? I did, and I got to be funny, and I got to be a villainess, and I got to be sexy, and it was great.
Well, that's quite a nice little nothing you're almost wearing. I approve.
I don't dress for the hired help.
Jill St. John was Bond's object of desire, but it was Natalie Wood's younger sister, 24-year-old Lana Wood, who almost stole the picture. Lana played the ill-fated Plenty O'Toole.
Hi, I'm Plenty.
But of course you are.
Plenty O'Toole.
Named after your father, perhaps?
Bond girls were often too risque for their own good. 30 years after the theatrical release of Diamonds Are Forever, ABC Network censors were concerned that Plenty O'Toole showed plenty of skin. Digitally enhanced clothing was added to cover her up when the film was broadcast in the winter of 2002.
Lana Wood, before she was being thrown out of the window, and that brief second when you might have seen something, is so indicative of the American censors' attitude toward sex, which is you can kill anybody, dismember anybody on screen, and blood can fly all over the place. But God help you if you show one frame showing a female breast.
Coming up, the Bond girls want more. Roger Moore.
I never minded having multiple takes with Roger in the love scene.
By the early 1970s, James Bond was a pop culture icon. Audiences loved the high-tech action, sex, and risque humor displayed in the Bond films. Bond girls were a big part of the formula, and they were about to get a lot bigger. In 1972, Diamonds Are Forever became the second highest grossing Bond film, earning $116 million around the world.
Is there something I can do for you?
Yes, as a matter of fact, there is. There is something I'd like you to get off your chest.
Once again, Sean Connery decided he'd had enough. After Diamonds was released in 1972, Connery retired from the role that made him a legend.
Unfortunately, it's like everything. It comes with age as a price. There was a Frankenstein element.
44-year-old Roger Moore stepped in.
Roger Moore had unbelievable experience as an actor. He was reportedly Fleming's first choice for the role, but he was playing the Saint and he was unavailable.
I was a little nervous about saying, "My name is Bond, James Bond," because I kept hearing him, "My name is Bond, James Bond," and I thought I can't just say it Scottish.
In October of 1972, Roger Moore reported for work on the film Live and Let Die. The movie was shot in London, New Orleans, and Jamaica. Producers Cubby Broccoli and Harry Saltzman were considering super diva and former Supreme Diana Ross to play Solitaire, a bad girl turned good.
When I wrote the screenplay, the part of Solitaire was written as a black woman. And our plan was to offer the part to Diana Ross. United Artists suddenly asked me to back off. In those days, in 1972, 73, for James Bond to be sleeping with a black woman on screen was a huge, huge deal. David Picker, who ran United Artists at the time, explained to me also they could not release such a film in at least 4 or 5 countries, most notably South Africa, which then had apartheid, was a big grosser for them. And he said also that he was terribly concerned that outside of the big cities in the United States, it would be a very, very risky proposition.
Actor Yaphet Kotto played Dr. Kananga in Live and Let Die.
The black part of me is going to say, "Yes, baby, Diana Ross should play the part." The business side of me says the right person should have played the part. Diana Ross, for this particular role, was not the best person. They found the best person. I can't imagine anyone else playing Solitaire.
Producers cast 21-year-old Jane Seymour as Solitaire. At the time, Seymour's list of credits included stints on television, such as the 1972 miniseries The Strauss Family.
I don't explain how they ever chose me. I think they were looking for a virgin, but which I almost was.
One aspect of Solitaire which was terribly important to the part was that she was a virgin, and that her power of being able to read these tarot cards was tied up with her virginity. And Jane, who was absolutely beautiful, had a very virginal quality about her.
You found yourself. And I did have the nickname Baby Bernhardt because, like Sarah Bernhardt, the great actress, I thought this was a great acting role. It hadn't actually occurred to me that my cleavage was probably more important than, you know, my delivery.
Cleavage was important in a Bond movie, but producers Broccoli and Saltzman didn't ignore more serious issues. 007 was allowed to have an interracial fling.
They asked me to make Solitaire white, and the white girl, who had a small part, to make her black.
Actress Gloria Hendry played the part of Rosie.
Gloria Hendry was in the movie. She's a black woman. And that speaks for the rest of the film. She's like the first black woman to break that color barrier and play a Bond girl.
Oh, James. Oh, you don't know what finding you has meant to me.
When Bond slept with her, any reference to it and the scene itself was cut out in several countries.
As production started, Moore and Seymour became close friends, but something other than romance was in the air.
Roger and I had the only camper on the island where we, were supposed to rest between takes. This is a horrible story. Both of us had dysentery, which is not very pleasant to talk about. And that's where we became really good friends, because anyone that can share a camper and be sick, as we both were, that's an intimate experience. And then somebody wasn't driving too carefully on the island, and they crashed into the only camper, and we both fell off our bunk beds and landed on top of one another. That's the bit that nobody ever hears about.
Seymour soon found out there were other perils besides island fever.
There were some strange people who followed me around in Jamaica. That was pretty weird. Some older gentlemen who He scared the living daylights out of me. That was much fun.
There's no need to be frightened. You'll soon be rid of him, I promise.
And I was told that I couldn't live alone in the house because it was too dangerous.
Moore's tongue-in-cheek portrayal of James Bond connected with fans. Live and Let Die opened a strong business in 1973. Producers quickly signed the actor for another Bond film, The Man with the Golden Gun. On November 6, 1974, Moore faced the cameras again. This time, his co-star was a Swedish model, 29-year-old Maud Adams.
I was a little disappointed that I didn't have one of those really fancy names in my first role. Andrea Andrews seemed rather boring. She was the villain, Scaramanga's girlfriend. And she was cast in the mold of the rather early James Bond women, where she was a woman trapped, a victimized woman. She saw James Bond as her rescue.
The model was stunned by the media attention she got as a Bond girl.
I wasn't really prepared for this onslaught of journalists, and it was very scary for me in the beginning. I must say, even my first shooting sessions, I was extremely nervous about how to do it properly, how to satisfy the producers and the directors, and I was well aware of the attention I would be getting, and I just hoped that I could pull it off.
Adams and Moore had an instant rapport.
Bottoms up.
Roger would do funny things such as dropping his pants on a spur of the moment, and other things that I don't think I want to tell you.
A water pistol.
Pass me that rope.
Roger's a very good kisser. I never minded having multiple takes with Roger in the love scenes.
Bond fans also enjoyed seeing lots of Britt Ekland in The Man with the Golden Gun. 32-year-old Britt was the ex-wife of comic actor Peter Sellers. Ekland played British agent Mary Goodnight. Britt spent the better part of the movie running around in a bikini.
James, you must be good.
Because Britt Ekland was associated with so many famous people in a romantic way, that can only help you as a Bond girl in terms of the public perception of your sexuality.
Moneypenny, where's 007?
He's on a mission, sir, in Austria.
Well, tell him to pull out. Immediately.
Oh, James, I cannot find the words.
Well, let me try and enlarge your vocabulary.
By 1977, world politics were changing. There was a thaw in American-Soviet relations. For James Bond, the New World Order posed a bit of a problem. Bond girls provided the solution. In the 1977 film, The Spy Who Loved Me, actor Roger Moore met his match in Major Anya Amasova, played by 26-year-old Barbara Bach.
Barbara Bach was a perfect Bond girl. Since she had been a KGB major, obviously she was an assertive person that had strength. By the way, all the more fun to have her finally wind up being in love with Bond like everybody else is, because she's a tougher nut to crack.
As part of the whole discussion in the world of détente and Americans working with the Russians, the plot had James Bond actually teaming up with this Bond girl who was a Russian agent, and together they worked to try to, to stop the enemy from destroying the world, basically. So this was something a bit new for the James Bond films, and they were trying to portray a Bond girl as being his equal and working on par with him.
Politics aside, Barbara Bach was an ideal Bond girl. Actor Richard Kiel played the imposing villain Jaws in the film The Spy Who Loved Me.
What made Barbara Bach sexy is that she's a woman with a lot of heart.
Please keep me informed, Comrade General. I should very much like to meet whoever was responsible for his death.
Barbara brought a quality of realism to her role. I remember when we were filming at the pyramids in Egypt, and I was ripping open the top of the van, trying to get out of it. She started grinding the gears like...
Can you play any other tune?
And Roger was sitting on the outside fender to give her a look to look at. And he says, you want me to drive? And it kind of caught her off guard because it wasn't in the script. And she looked at him like, what? She really got into everything. And by getting into everything and getting a little surprise in the middle of it, it made it very real.
Shaken, but not stirred.
Things also got real during the shoot for 27-year-old Caroline Munro.
My first scene of the film was meant to enter in this great big speedboat.
Mr. Thurling?
Yes?
I'm Naomi. Mr. Stromberg sent me to collect you.
So we prepared, and just as we did action, I actually sat on a large beam. So my first entrance, I looked extremely, I don't know if the word is pained, but intense.
Caroline's character, a helicopter pilot, was one of the more unusual Bond girls.
I found the character kind of feisty and very new age of the time. She was quite refreshing in her directness towards Bond, and she was one of the only ones that didn't actually go to bed with him.
As the 1980s approached, the Bond girls were about to undergo a major evolution, and Agent 007 would definitely have his hands full. Coming up, what's in a name?
I thought, my God, now they've really gone too far.
By the end of the 1970s, the Bond girls were changing more than their hair color. Producers fought and won to include an Asian woman and an African-American woman among 007's conquests. The Bond girls had come a long way, baby, and they were about to go a lot further. In 1979, James Bond was set to blast into outer space, but he wasn't going alone. The 11th Bond film, Moonraker, co-starred 37-year-old Lois Chiles as a brainy space shuttle pilot named Holly Goodhead. Chiles was a former cover girl who appeared in the 1973 film The Way We Were.
Yes, my name is Bond. James Bond. I'm looking for Dr. Goodhead.
You just found her.
I kind of liked having the name Holly Goodhead. Sorry. I don't know. I mean, it's one of the memorable names of Bond.
In Moonraker, the sex was out of this world, literally. Producers continue to put Bond women in unusual positions.
Bond is floating in space, actually making love with Holly, and they're saying, what's Bond doing? And Q, who's not paying attention to what he's doing, said,
I think he's attempting re-entry, sir.
After 3 previous Bond films, Roger Moore knew his role inside and out. The actor's rapport with his co-stars was as naughty off-screen as it was on. Bond girl Carol Ashby.
Roger Moore was absolutely charming and the English gentleman. And he was great fun and would play pranks on us and make us laugh at the wrong points. We'd get into trouble.
Roger is a lovely man, and he's very, charming and suave and cool and funny and elegant. But he has the dirtiest sense of humor you've ever heard. I was shocked.
By the 1980s, Bond girls had to be more than simply beautiful and glamorous. They also had to be athletic. During the production of Moonraker, Lois Chiles learned firsthand that Bond girls must face some dangerous risks.
It was pretty scary doing the stunts on the cable car. Because even though the really difficult stunts were done, obviously, by stunt doubles, we did quite a bit of that. And it was scary hanging as far from the ground as the stunt doubles were.
In the age of feminism, Bond girls were becoming Bond women. They were no longer just sex objects. Bond women were empowered. These chicks packed heat.
They have capabilities such as knowing how to handle weapons, knowing how to do all kinds of things that generally women don't in real life know about. The average woman does not have submarines coming in her purse.
The Bond girls had come a long way, but the story was different for the actresses who got cozy with Agent 007.
At that time, 1979, women had sort of taken exception to the fact that they'd been treated like sex objects. And being a Bond girl was not a really cool thing to be in 1979.
I'm fully trained, on loan from NASA.
In fact, Holly Goodhead was Bond's concession to the feminist movement.
Bond girls weren't about to start burning their bras. Society, however, was changing, and Bond films needed to keep up with the times. The 1981 movie For Your Eyes Only did just that.
This was the most earth-based, realistic kind of Bond film since On Her Majesty's Secret Service, where they really tried to get into some serious adventure going on. And Bond, it was not as wacky, it wasn't as silly. They were trying to get back to their roots a little bit.
French actress Carole Bouquet played Melina Havelock. a young woman who helped Bond go after international terrorists. Bouquet's role continued the trend away from bimbo-esque Bond girls. With bigger parts and juicier storylines, Bond girls were gaining more respect. Producer Cubby Broccoli knew the women were almost as important as Bond himself. He decided the next Bond girl would get the title role in Octopussy. Casting director Jane Jenkins.
We were looking for an exotic East Indian actress to play the Octopussy role.
But Cubby Broccoli wanted to bring back Maud Adams, who appeared in The Man with the Golden Gun.
He said, you know, I was just on television last night with this movie with Maud, and she did a terrific job for us. We should use her again. And I went, Maud Adams, that East Indian actress? And he said, she's beautiful, and she's perfect for the part.
Maud Adams, I thought, was just a stunning-looking woman, Scandinavian, tall, and a wonderful match for Roger, who's a very big man himself. And I thought she was just absolutely beautiful.
For them, it was a really big deal that this was going to be a first in Bond history, that there was going to be an actress who had played two leading women in Bond films.
Maud Adams had some reservations.
Oh, gosh, the name Octopussy really embarrassed me at first. I thought, my God, now they're really gone too far. I can't believe they're calling each other Octopussy, and how can I possibly play that role? I mean, I am still referred to as Octopussy.
The name may have been vintage Bond, but there was more to the part than just sexual innuendo.
Forgive my curiosity, but what is that?
That's my little Octopussy.
She was a smuggler. She had a traveling circus. It was a cover for her smuggling operation. It was perceived that she is a villainess in the film, but as it turns out, there's really a villain behind her, and she's not really all that rotten.
The image of the Bond girls was changing, but the hoopla stayed the same.
The attention on Bond was completely overwhelming. I had no idea when I stepped into that role what it meant to be a Bond girl.
I was amazed that we had constantly people on the set, and we were always giving interviews and always talking to the press all over the world.
Sometimes the press went a bit too far.
When we were filming Octopussy, it was my first night there, and I had a water fight with a photographer. He was trying to take pictures, and we were having a good time. We didn't have pictures taken, but he was fun, he was nice. So I was flicking water at him, and I thought, I've actually thrown too much, he's going to get really cross with me. And I ran away across a marble forecourt, and I sort of aquaplaned. As I flipped the water back at him, I fell and went into a wall and smashed my foot in. And I remember lying on the floor thinking, oh my God, I've got a film tomorrow, we've not started yet. I was bleeding my toe, and I thought, well done, Carol.
The movie Octopussy premiered in June of 1983. The film marked a turning point for the Bond girls and made a star out of Maud Adams. At the same time, James Bond himself was evolving, and 007 would never be the same again. Coming up, Roger No More.
The character was starting to change and be less cartoon-like in a way.
By the mid-1980s, Bond girls were all about strength and style. The vixens were also foils for the dashing and often comedic Roger Moore, a.k.a. James Bond. While Moore thought about retiring from the world of spy games, his sexy counterparts wanted in on the action. In the summer of 1985, 56-year-old Roger Moore played secret agent James Bond for the 7th time in A View to a Kill. Casting directors pursued a TV crime fighter to play Bond's leading lady.
Tanya Roberts was on Charlie's Angels, and somebody walked into the office and said, what about Tanya Roberts? And she sort of became the girl of the moment.
I didn't do an audition. I just met with the producer, and they offered me the part. So I was lucky. Thank God, because I really suck at auditions.
Tanya Roberts played Stacy Sutton, who was a geologist, and she's sort of, again, swept up into the whole story.
Get back!
Tanya brimmed with sex appeal, but her character was not the typical 007 seductress.
She was like a good girl. She wasn't feisty and maniacal. So, hey, but what can you do? I had a shower shot at the end. Yeah, I know. Grace got to wear all the wild clothes.
Disco diva Grace Jones played May Day, a larger-than-life baddie.
Someone will take care of you. I've basically been voted one of the wickedest
villains in the James Bond movies. Grace Jones was a strong, tough cookie that no man would want to mess with.
I think it was just a matter of being dominating without having necessarily all the muscles. And this will be the first time that the girl goes on top.
She was just wild, lots of fun, just like you'd expect.
Octopussy co-star Carol Ashby was also offered a small role in A View to a Kill. Ashby auditioned for director John Glenn, who was looking for a very specific talent.
Tell me, have you got big tits and can you whistle? And I went, well, the medium, really, medium-sized ones, and I can whistle inwards. Is that okay? He said, yeah, do you want a part in the next film? And we thought, as you had so much trouble on the last one, maybe you'd be quite good for it.
Lois Maxwell returned as Miss Moneypenny for the 13th time.
Miss Moneypenny, I think, had been in every movie in one way or another. And Miss Moneypenny represented every woman in the world who would like to sleep with James Bond and hadn't done so.
Ah!
In 1987, Bond underwent a facelift.
I was 56, and I was starting to worry that Bond girls would have to become Bond old age pensioners, you know, to match up with me.
Roger Moore was out, and 41-year-old Timothy Dalton took on the role of 007. Dalton was a classically trained actor who appeared on stage in London and in movies like Wuthering Heights and Flash Gordon.
Timothy Dalton's a terrific actor, and he brought a serious touch to the character, which I think a lot of the fans enjoyed, because Roger Moore's films started to get a little too funny. And Timothy Dalton carries a gun, and he's very serious.
Bond girl, Miriam Dabo.
What's changed in this new James Bond is the story is stronger, more real, the plot is more real.
And so were the Bond girls.
These are not just sex objects, they're professional women. They can handle themselves with weapons. Yes, they get caught up in these great adventures. Yes, they're beautiful, they're gorgeous. They may even sleep with James Bond, but they are nonetheless strong, independent women.
The character was starting to change and be less cartoon-like in a way. And I think what was nice about my character, she was feminine and she had a heart.
In Dalton's first Bond film, The Living Daylights, Miriam played a woman scorned who becomes an ally to 007.
It's a very sweet part I had to play. I enjoyed it so much because she's a very natural girl, very instinctive. She's an artist, and she's got vulnerability and genuine innocence about her, which is quite endearing.
Dabo was just 2 years old when the first Bond film was released in 1962. 24 years later, the young actress felt honored to be invited into the elite Bond sorority.
I never saw myself as a Bond girl. I never even dreamt of it. It was completely so surprising when I got the role. I was in a daze. I really did not believe it. It took me, I think, 2 days to comprehend. They see me as a Bond girl, you know. Because I always imagined Bond girls 5'10" and, you know, Ursula Andress coming out of the water. You know. So I was very flattered.
Dabo looked to fellow Bond newcomer Timothy Dalton for advice.
It was the first time I was in a big movie and didn't have any of the experience he had. Timothy is, first of all, a very, very wonderful actor. Done a lot of theatre in his life, a lot of classics, and he's very, very supportive of all his fellow, you know, partners who he works with.
But ultimately the fans had to decide if this new Bond and the new breed of Bond girls were worthy of their legendary names. Coming up, why 007 loves his ladies.
Sex, sex, sex.
By 1987, Roger Moore retired from his 007 duties. Actor Timothy Dalton brought a whole new dimension to James Bond. Dalton's first Bond film, The Living Daylights, earned critical praise and nearly $200 million at the box office. Once again, the bar was raised, and the quest for Bond's next sexy distraction was on. The continuing evolution of the Bond girls made casting a challenge for each film. There was always a bevy of beautiful women ready to fight for the roles. Casting directors Janet Hershenson and Jane Jenkins.
To pare down, you know, the many choices for the Bond women, I mean, we look at pictures, we look at
and
videotapes.
Beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Absolutely.
In 1988, producer Cubby Broccoli was eyeing potential co-stars for the new Bond adventure, License to Kill.
There was a day of screen tests at the Broccoli's house at the pool with all of these spectacularly, unbelievably gorgeous women with legs that went on for days in bikinis parading around the pool. Even as a woman, I had to just sit there saying, man, oh man, these are gorgeous girls.
Jenkins suggested 21-year-old Brooklyn-born Talisa Soto for the role of seductress Lupe Lamora. In the summer of 1988, Talisa came in to read for director John Glenn and Cubby Broccoli.
We had already met Talisa on a couple of other projects that we had worked on and really had a soft spot for her. She's a terrific girl. And when she came in to meet John Glenn, I will never forget it as long as I live, because we didn't have anything to audition her with. She just came in for a meeting, and she had just really started making that transition from being a model to being an actress. She was so terrified coming in to meet Cubby Broccoli and John Glenn and everybody, and she pulled it off.
A slightly more experienced actress, Carrie Lowell, was cast as Bond's beautiful and courageous pilot. Lowell was another model-turned-actress who later did a stint on the hit TV drama Law and Order. But playing Bond girl Pam Bouvier was Carrie's breakout role.
It's groundbreaking in the Bond film history that the woman, this time, actually, Bond needs her more than she needs him. She's not sort of an O. James character. She's much more strong, and that appeals to me greatly because it's much more a woman of the 80s.
Timothy Dalton's Bond wasn't typical either. His 007 had a darker edge.
With License to Kill, you know, there's been a big change. It's much more believable. It's much more exciting and dangerous and violent and tense.
But that didn't stop James from bonding with his two alluring co-stars.
Look, I just saved your life back there. If it wasn't for me, your ass would have been nailed to the wall.
You saved my life?
Yes.
License to Kill marked a turning point for the adventures of 007.
The James Bond producers took a hiatus after License to Kill. There was some legal problems and financial things that went on, so there was quite a number of years before the next Bond film. So they essentially relaunched the movie with GoldenEye in 1995.
Timothy Dalton, however, wasn't interested in reprising his role. Again, the time had come for a new James Bond. Producers passed the torch, Tux and Walther PPK, to Pierce Brosnan. The 42-year-old Irish actor was well known as TV private eye Remington Steele. Pierce would have nabbed the Bond role earlier, but he was locked into his TV contract. Brosnan seemed destined to play 007.
He's footloose and fancy-free. He has an easy charm with women. He's comfortable in his own skin, so to speak. He likes a stiff drink, and girls like guys who drink stiff drinks.
Well, not all girls.
They made his boss, M, a woman. M had always been a man. So now we have a woman, and there's actually a scene where James Bond is sitting there, and she, you know, calls him
a sexist, misogynist dinosaur.
GoldenEye director Martin Campbell.
Judi Dench plays M, and she plays it wonderfully, and she's such a... And I remember her coming in, and we're talking probably one of the best actresses in the world, if not the best actress in the world. I remember sitting on set, and she was... I went up, I said, are you okay? She said, oh, yes, I'm awfully nervous, you know, it's Bond. And I said, Christ, I said, you're nervous.
Between romantic conquests, 007 was busy saving the world, as usual. In GoldenEye, a Russian computer programmer played by Isabella Skorupko offered Bond a helping hand. Skorupko was a popular actress and singer in Sweden before winning a part in the film.
We'd been all around the world looking for casting for the lead girl, couldn't find her. And in the end, I sat down with the casting directors, and we literally marked off the countries we'd been to, which was just about everything, in Europe and America, everywhere else to look for the girl. And the one place we hadn't been to was Sweden, so I put her on a plane that night. She went to Sweden, and 2 weeks before shooting, she rang me and said, I've got to go. And that was Isabella.
This was my first big Hollywood production. It's like a fantasy world for women where you can just run around in beautiful, amazing hats, designer clothes, shoes.
The chemistry between Isabella and Pierce on the set, I think, was pretty good. I think she's fun. She's a practical joker and just looks just bloody terrific.
There's no way you cannot, not love Pierce because of the way he is. He was just very generous with attention towards every woman on set. He made every woman feel very important. So basically he was, you know, the Bond in real life too.
Tell me, are there any other standard operating procedures I should be aware of, Commander?
Thousands. The quality that all the Bond girls share, great bodies, sex appeal, certain independent nature to them, and a sense of humor, sex.
There are also some villainesses who are very nasty types of women who also find Bond attractive. Bond finds them attractive. They may sleep together, but they could pretty much be his equal, such as Xenia Onatopp in GoldenEye.
Xenia Sergeyevna Onatopp.
Onatopp?
Onatopp.
Actress Famke Janssen played Onatopp, the kinky assassin.
I'm sure people are going to be, I hope they're going to be intimidated. That would be good.
Famke Janssen got the part because she simply came in for an interview, and it was a great part because it was the villainess, you know, and she crushes Bond to death with a thigh. What better way to go?
She has her thighs around him, and she's like trying to kill him and knocking him around. And it was definitely, Bond was up against somebody who was very strong and powerful, you know, and in a sexual sense as well.
Famke took that part of Onatopp. She just grabbed it and she sort of made it her own, and she just went to town on him. You know, there was no holding her. She just leapt on him and gave him hell.
Coming up, Bond takes another beating.
The stunt coordinator came running up to me and he said, you don't have to keep hitting Pierce.
In 1995, Pierce Brosnan assumed the identity of secret agent James Bond in GoldenEye. The sultry villain, played by Famke Janssen, put the squeeze on Bond in the steam room, and Swedish pop sensation Isabella Scorupco portrayed a Russian computer whiz who helped 007 save the day. But GoldenEye's supporting cast of Bond girls also made a big impression. A new breed of Bond girls sizzled on the big screen. Future acting heavyweight Minnie Driver eagerly reported to work on the set of GoldenEye. Driver was cast as Irina, a sexy Russian country western singer.
Minnie Driver's interesting because when I cast her, she was not known. Minnie was a last-minute replacement.
But Driver wasn't the only newcomer. There was also a new Miss Moneypenny, played by Samantha Bond.
Samantha Bond is my real name. It's the name I was born with. When I was a child, the Bond jokes with my surname were constant and usually very, very unfunny. And it then became quite helpful in later life because you can ring up and, you know, book a table and say Bond.
The character of Miss Moneypenny appeared in every Bond film. Samantha knew she had some big shoes to fill.
When I heard that I'd got the part of Moneypenny, I felt slightly awestruck. It's a much bigger mantle of responsibility to take on than you think it is.
Hope springs eternal.
You know, this sort of behavior could qualify as sexual harassment. My Moneypenny meets Bond much more as an equal, I think, than in the older films.
What's the penalty for that?
Someday you have to make good on your innuendos. Moneypenny has wit, has sharpness. Some people think she's quite attractive. I couldn't possibly comment.
Samantha Bond is simply, she's that sort of English Rose in a funny way, you know, quite sharp and quite sarcastic and quite sort of, obviously the key to Moneypenny is that she's sort of in love with James Bond. Of course, he goes out and bonks everybody else in sight, and of course she sits behind the desk pining after him.
When you take on the part of Moneypenny, you have to understand the limitations of the role. She's there for a nice few jokes and a bit of a flirt. I think that if you were constantly to be hankering for more than that, you'd be a very unhappy woman.
But everyone was happy when the movie GoldenEye grossed a whopping $351 million worldwide. As for Miss Moneypenny, she earned the biggest laugh of her career in the next film, Tomorrow Never Dies.
I'm just up here at Oxford, brushing up on a little Danish.
You always were a cunning linguist, James.
The femme fatales of Tomorrow Never Dies also included actress Terry Hatcher.
When I first got offered this, my husband said, oh, you have to do it so that I can say I'm married to a Bond girl, you know, and we figure when we're 80 it'll be really funny.
Terry Hatcher, who was in the Superman TV show, plays Paris Carver, who actually had known James Bond, had an affair with him. Now she's married.
There was this character that Bond actually had these really deep emotional feelings for, and how that weight was a different thing than what they'd done with the women and his relationships in other films.
The complicated history between Bond and his former lover made for some heated arguments. Well, kind of.
They were shooting from one angle behind me, I think, over onto him, and we did it a couple of times. The stunt coordinator came running up to me and he said, you know, you don't have to keep hitting Pierce. And I looked at him and I was like, I'm not touching it, you know, and I thought that's really good that we faked the stunt coordinator out.
Hatcher delivered a hard-hitting performance, despite another delivery on the way.
I was pregnant, and I wanted to do some sort of film, and especially something that was fun and exciting like this movie is, and the timing of it was a very short commitment because it's almost a cameo.
Casting director Jane Jenkins was surprised to learn that Hatcher was expecting.
I certainly didn't know that Terry Hatcher was planning to have a baby or was pregnant. As I recall, she looked absolutely spectacular in the movie. I don't remember seeing any little bellies protruding.
There was another lean, mean Bond girl in Tomorrow Never Dies, martial arts maven Michelle Yeoh. Like her predecessors, Michelle's character reflected the changing roles of women in the real world. In other words, Yeoh's Bond girls didn't take any crap.
Having this new dimension where you have a woman who's kicking butt just exactly like Bond is, it draws them in. It's a way of saying, we can do the same thing too. It's not just you guys, it's not limited to you.
Michelle Yeoh was very tough, very sort of self-assured, physically very strong.
Michelle Yeoh, a very famous martial arts expert in the movies in the Far East, plays a Chinese secret agent, Wei Lin, and she ends up teaming with James Bond in this movie.
Michelle also teamed with Pierce Brosnan when it came to practical jokes.
We ended up doing a lot of stuff to other people. If someone new came on the set, you know, he would turn around and say, kick his head. You know, this guy would turn around and suddenly he would have a foot in his face. So we ended up doing a lot of naughty things, but it was all in the name of fun.
But no one was laughing after the release date for Tomorrow Never Dies was announced. The film was scheduled to premiere on December 19th, 1997, the same day the picture Titanic was scheduled to set sail. It was sink or swim for Pierce Brosnan and his Bond girls. Coming up, one Bond girl struggles to stay afloat.
Michael Apted asked me if I could swim. I'm like, yeah, I can swim. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into.
In 1995, Pierce Brosnan made his debut as James Bond in the film GoldenEye. The movie earned more than $350 million at the box office. Topping that success would be tough. Brosnan's next picture, Tomorrow Never Dies, hit movie theaters the same day as James Cameron's eagerly anticipated mega movie, Titanic. On December 19, 1997, the battle of the blockbusters began. Titanic won the top spot at the box office, but Tomorrow Never Dies didn't sink. 007 raked in more than $25 million over the opening weekend. Pierce Brosnan and his stronger, more sophisticated Bond girls continue to be a winning combination.
It's great bloody living. It's wonderful. I'm having the time of my life.
After more than 3 decades, producers didn't want to tamper with the winning formula. The set of Pierce Brosnan's third 007 film, The World Is Not Enough, was populated with more beautiful women than ever.
Well, yeah, there's babes galore. There's, you know, Dame Judi Dench. She's #1 babe. Sophie Marceau, but Denise Richards. I think Michael Apted actually had a bloody great time casting this.
Director Michael Apted.
With Sophie and Denise, I kind of knew as soon as I met them. You know, I had to go through the business, you know, of testing them and convincing the studio and everything that this was the right thing. But there was something about both of them that as soon as I saw them, I knew. I really felt these were my girls.
28-year-old Denise Richards was cast as Dr. Christmas Jones. In 1997, Richards starred in the sci-fi adventure Starship Troopers, so The World Is Not Enough seemed like a perfect fit.
What I loved about the film is that it is an action movie and I get to do these physical things. The most challenging was the submarine sequence. When I screen tested for the film, Michael Apted asked me if I could swim. I'm like, yeah, I can swim. I didn't realize what I was getting myself into with that.
With Denise, she had a lot of difficult stuff to do. You see her flailing around the water, you know, that's her.
I'd never done any scuba diving or anything, so it was pretty easy to stay, you know, into it because it was so intense with all the water, and the set itself was tipped to a 90-degree angle, so it was very confined. So it was actually kind of scary doing it.
Portraying a modern-day Bond girl was rigorous, but the demands were more than physical.
The great thing about all the women is they're very smart, and they all have these great jobs. They're either spies or agents or scientists or doctors, and it's fun. I get to play a nuclear scientist, and he needs her because she can defuse a bomb.
And a good Bond girl always coordinates her wardrobe with her mission.
Denise Richards in hot pants. I mean, it's a hoot. You roar when you see her, you know. This rocket scientist running about in hot pants. I mean, it's hilarious.
French actress Sophie Marceau landed the role of Electra King.
The whole center of the film is really the relationship between Bond, Pierce, and Sophie Marceau.
She's supposedly a victim. She is a victim of a terrorist kidnapping. He discovers later on in the film that she's actually the villain, and she tortures him, and he ends up actually killing her by the end of the movie.
They gave me the script just like a few days or weeks later, and I was amazed because I liked the part. I was like, wow, it's a great part. There's a lot to do, and it's interesting. I'm afraid you're going to do a James Bond movie.
The World Is Not Enough was released internationally in November 1999. The film turned into yet another mega hit, and planning immediately began for the 20th 007 film, Die Another Day.
In today's Bond films, the women have changed to some degree. I would say that in many times they have them stand up a little bit more to James Bond.
You gotta have a great sense of humor about yourself and your sexuality and your sensuality. And you've gotta have great confidence in yourself. And, you know, certainly helps if you can act.
Die Another Day director Lee Tamahori agrees.
I want to get a Bond girl that really epitomizes the kind of girl I think should be sleeping with James Bond, someone that epitomizes someone that we'd all like to sleep with. So, you know, there it is, Halle Berry.
Halle Berry became one of the few African-American women to play a love interest in a James Bond film.
Being Jinx was really cool because I got to play a character that I never thought I would ever play in life. I grew up watching Bond movies, and so to be actually in one as a Bond girl was sort of like a little fantasy come true.
She's an extraordinarily pleasant person and very easy to work with, and she couldn't wait to get on this movie. I mean, I think it's everyone's dream to kind of be in a Bond movie anyway, and Halle's no different.
34-year-old Halle Berry identified with her crafty contemporary character.
I got into the attitude of Jinx, which is she's tough, she's also fun, has a great sense of humor. She's also very sexy and knows how to use her sexuality to sort of get what she wants.
It's interesting that you've got Halle Berry playing the latest Bond girl. You would never, 20 years ago, got an actress of her caliber to play it.
On January 14, 2002, principal photography for Die Another Day kicked off in London, England. 2 months later, Berry returned to Los Angeles to attend the Academy Awards. Halle Berry became the first African-American woman to win Best Actress for her performance in the dramatic film Monsters Ball. Berry's Bond castmates were thrilled.
She's a gorgeous woman. Every man and woman on the set was so proud of her and wanted her to win.
The fact that Halle Berry, after winning an Academy Award, wants to be a Bond girl is a reflection of how ongoing an appeal the whole concept has.
But the biggest appeal for Halle was to achieve every woman's goal.
I get to outsmart the bad guys and look disarmingly beautiful while doing it.
Coming up, another Bond beauty reveals all.
The sexual charisma of the man when he's in your presence is irresistible.
By 2002, production on the 20th James Bond movie, Die Another Day, was underway. 40 years after the release of the first 007 film, Dr. No, James Bond was as seductive and successful as ever. And having Oscar-winning actress Halle Berry on board didn't hurt either. In Die Another Day, Bond unravels a plot for world domination. Pierce Brosnan and Halle Berry welcomed a real-life pop diva to join in the action.
Madonna's doing the music for us. She's done the title song, which will, is fantastic. And she's also got a little part in the film, playing a fencing instructor who shows Bond a move or two.
All Bond girls have sort of a sense of adventure about them that I think I really like, and they choose actresses that can sort of bring that to the role. They have a lot of fun and don't take themselves too seriously.
Die Another Day was a groundbreaking experience for its female stars. Halle Berry discovered that being a Bond girl isn't all glamour.
I was surprised. I thought she'd done a lot of this before. Running, jumping, shooting, leaping off tall buildings. And she hadn't done as much as I thought, so we had to kind of tune her up.
When Halle wore a knife next to her bikini bottom, she evoked the image of Ursula Andress in Dr. No and brought the Bond girls full circle.
She said, she made an homage to my bikini. She has a fabulous figure. She has an incredible figure. She looks marvelous.
What makes Halle the quintessential Bond girl is the question. Halle's a very watchable woman.
Berry also felt a kinship to 007.
I still think it should be Berry. Halle Berry.
They're both of equal stature and equal ability, if you will. So, two smashing-looking spies jumping into bed together is a fabulous thing.
Even Samantha Bond's often reserved character, Miss Moneypenny, had a hard time keeping her hands to herself.
In the most recent film, I think you'll see a side to Moneypenny and James's relationship that you haven't seen before.
There's a scene in this movie which is really very funny. I think the audience will get such a kick out of it. They won't be expecting it. And it concerns Samantha and Bond.
I've really enjoyed the scene with James, and I think that reveals quite a lot about how Moneypenny feels about James, and it was certainly great fun to shoot it.
I'm not going to say. It's more than my life is worth to tell you what went on between Moneypenny and Bond.
Die Another Day also features sexy newcomer Rosamund Pike.
Rosamund is great. She's not terribly experienced. Really, this is her first major film. But she's just graduated from Oxford.
Pike plays Miranda Frost, an Olympic fencing champion turned MI6 agent with an attitude.
Miranda's an extraordinary girl. She's a very quick-witted girl. She's sharp, she's cutting.
Playing opposite Halle Berry, however, was a challenge for Rosamund.
In a lot of Bond films, the girls don't come up against each other. But we've had fantastic sort of scenes where we've got to play off some really witty, catty, mean, girly dialogue together, culminating in a fight on board a crashing aeroplane. It's a real girl fight. It's not nice. It's not pretty. It's two women wanting to kill each other.
When it comes to Bond girls, there's a thin line between killing and kissing.
Doing a love scene in James Bond is an extraordinary experience. This is a very good kissing. Yeah. The power and the sexual charisma of the man when he's in your presence is irresistible.
Bond seduces them all, of course, and most of them put up a resistance to start with and then finally fall into his arms and end up with some very smart sequence at the end of the movie where the raft's cut loose and they're left to get on with what they do best.
Despite the predictable passion between Bond and his babes, Die Another Day enabled the Bond girls to experience the unexpected as actresses and characters. Still, they all want Bond in the end. Coming up, a license to thrill.
The common quality in the Bond girls is sex, sometimes quite raw sex.
In the fall of 2002, the highly anticipated release of Die Another Day marks a milestone for the Secret Agent series. The 20th James Bond film had all the familiar spy thriller elements, but this time, the Bond girl was 007's perfect match. 40 years have passed since Ursula Andress in a sexy bikini heated up the big screen in Dr. No. In those 4 decades, the women of Bond have matured into worldly and powerful characters.
They've got meatier roles, less submissive. They've become stronger. They've got more intelligent roles. They participate more in the plot rather than being dragged through it by Bond or simply being put in jeopardy so Bond can save them. I think that's the way it's changed.
Bond women have become really, really tough. They've become very much equal partners to James Bond. You know, they're no longer fluff like maybe sometimes they used to be. As we have evolved as women, so have the Bond girls.
The most fun part about being a Bond girl is that at my age now, I walk down the street and little kids come up to me and say, "Hey, I saw your movie." And I go, "Which movie was that?" And they go, "James Bond." And, you know, it's so timeless. I mean, those movies are still classic favorites. I mean, my 6-year-old boys, their favorite movie is James Bond. You know, Mommy's in James Bond. And, of course, my neighbor in California is Pierce Brosnan. So when his son gets together with my kids, the first time, it's very funny, his son said, "My dad's James Bond." And my kid said, "My mom's James Bond's girlfriend."
It's like a Miss America remains Miss America forever. A Bond girl will be a Bond girl till she's 80. And maybe that's what sets them apart.
The quintessential Bond girl is a constantly changing thing depending on the times. I think the Broccoli's have very cleverly evolved the Bond girl.
They've got to be beautiful. They've got to swoon and fall for Bond, or they've got to resist him and then collapse into his arms at some stage. I've always liked them when they had teeth in their head and had really humorous aspects to them, like Famke, like Grace Jones, like Hallie is. We like to grin with and laugh with them even when they're romping and bonking in bed.
They kind of build up this image of you so they can tell the world that you're the sexiest, most beautiful thing alive. And I guess they were kind of running out of things to talk about with me, so they made up a few things that I've had to live down ever since. Things like that my favorite thing to do was running naked through tall grass, which to this day I've never done. But it's somewhere there, you know, it's one of those factoids that somebody decided to write down that Jane Seymour at 20 loved to run naked through tall grass. And I can't wipe that one off my resume somehow.
The common quality in the Bond girls is sex. Sometimes quite raw sex, sometimes slightly more sophisticated.
But it was more than just sex that made Bond girls so radical.
I think it was more, I don't know, it is a different new image of a woman.
Producers Harry Saltzman, who died in 1994, and Cubby Broccoli, who passed away in 1996, were proud to have created such memorable roles for actresses. But the Bond girls have mixed emotions about their legacy.
I didn't want to be an actress. I'm not ambitious. I did not want to give up my life for a career, no. There is no money, no success, no fame who can give, who could replace the love of freedom for me.
The actresses sort of feel there's some kind of a jinx on Bond, that the actresses were scared of being typecast, no question about that. And in truth, they are. They're there for what Bond does best, you know, which is kind of leap into bed and ultimately seduce them.
I'm not planning on going into oblivion after this. I'm planning on keep on going and acting and, you know, doing as many roles as I possibly can.
I was asked this question when I was going to do GoldenEye, that are you really serious? Are you really sure you're going to do this? Because this could be the end of your career. And I was shocked. I was like, what are these people talking about? This is like the funniest, most amazing, exciting thing you can do in life, being a Bond girl.
They willingly hurl themselves onto the bed and he jumped on top of them. Of course it's demeaning to women.
I can see how the image of some of the Bond girls could be seen as demeaning to women. They portray women as just falling to the feet of this man, doing anything that he wants. The women are also enjoying James Bond. It's not only the women who are objects, sometimes the men are objects. I mean, you could say James Bond, you know, is an object in a sense.
Former Bond girls don't see their roles as degrading in the least.
I don't think the image of a Bond girl is demeaning to women at all. We all have to have some fun and escapism and entertainment in our lives.
From a female point of view, if you actually watch them for the girls, I think they provide a huge amount of the entertainment.
Women love to watch women, you know. How does she look? Is it, oh, she's fat, no, she's, you know. And Bond gives you like great creature, you know, beautiful women with great clothes. So, you know, we like that. And if in the middle of that you have a movie, you have a story, you have a love story, and, you know, it's great.
And James Bond, without the Bond girls, is simply unimaginable.
You are with about the most desirable man in the world at this moment. You know, there is not a woman in the world who wouldn't like to be in the arms of James Bond, whoever they are and however much they think they wouldn't.
But what exactly happens once Bond gets his girl alone? We'll never know.
Just don't discuss those things. You know what I mean? You know, nudge, nudge. Say no more. Wait, wait.
Oh, James.
Oh, James.
Oh, James.
Oh, James.
Oh, James.
James.
Oh, James.
Oh, James.
Oh, James.
Oh, James. Oh, James.
Oh, James.